So up next we've got Mike. He's going to present us on a whole bunch of different bits of home automation tech he's been using. Take away, Mike.
G'day, so I'm Mike. I don't actually work in computers. I like tinkering with Home Assistant and things, but at work I tinker with organs. I work at the hospital. So I'm just going to talk about a bunch of home automation stuff that I've got at home and stuff that I've integrated with Home Assistant. I was a little bit pressed for time to do this talk, so I've just got a bunch of photos and I'm just going to run through it all and hopefully it makes sense. So I think this is the best sort of home automation / electronic device that I've got in the house at the moment. It's a Yale Smart Lock. It's really good not to have keys anymore. So these cost around about $300 for a basic model. And then if you want to integrate with Home Assistant, you're going to have to add about another $100 for either a Zigbee module or a Z-Wave module. Yale makes 2 smart locks. This is the newer model that's only been out in New Zealand for about 6 months. And it does Bluetooth as well, but the Bluetooth is not very good and I wouldn't buy it for Bluetooth. And it's only got a Zigbee module at the moment. It doesn't have a Z-Wave module. But I think the touchpad is a little bit more responsive. There's an older model that's about the same price as well. It's about $300 at Mitre 10 or Bunnings. And that model has Z-Wave and Zigbee. And I can say for certain that Z-Wave integrates well with Home Assistant on the earlier model, but not on the newer model that I've got because they don't have the Z-Wave module available yet. So
quick question. Really.
Yes.
What's Z-Wave and Zigbee?
Yeah, so with home automation devices, they have to talk to each other. And there's quite a few different protocols that are used. And probably the most common 3, I'd say, are Zigbee, Z-Wave, and also MQTT. So MQTT is communicated over Wi-Fi. Someone else probably knows what MQTT stands for. Well, it stands for something, but I think it's probably the best method for communicating inside the house between devices, but it does require Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi uses more battery power. So there's low battery power communication methods, and that's Zigbee and Z-Wave. Zigbee's on 2.4 gigahertz, and a lot of the Show Me stuff uses Zigbee. And then there's Z-Wave as well, which can be a bit more secure. There's 2 major frequencies. There's US and sort of what's used in Australia and New Zealand, and they're not compatible because the US stuff interferes with the cell phones here, so you're not supposed to use it, and you probably shouldn't, you'll get in trouble. But with the locks available for sale in New Zealand, they'll use Z-Wave New Zealand frequency, but you just need to make sure that if you are buying a Z-Wave module or a lock, that it is New Zealand Z-Wave. Whereas Zigbee's international, so yeah.
There were a couple of videos from previous talks about like the inner workings of Z-Wave and Zigbee. So if you can check out the channel, there's a whole bunch of stuff on there about it.
So yeah, that's a lock for sale on the Mitre 10 website. So what I did is I removed my old lock from the door, and it left a big gap. So I made a piece of wood and slotted it in the gap, and around the edge of the gap I put builder's bulk. So it's you get a jar of this white goo, and then you add a small little bit of another goo, a little bit like epoxy, but it's not 50-50. You mix it up and it becomes hard as wood, and you could probably just fill up your old lock, the whole area, with builder's bulk, but I thought it would be a bit stronger if I chucked a piece of wood in there.
Top tip, don't use it on the interior, and then leave your windows shut and then run your AC because it ruins your whole house in terms of
Oh, it smells great.
Oh,
I like the smell of that.
Is that your professional medical advice? Or
Don't smell it before work. That's good to fun on the weekend. And that's, I guess, is after I've sort of finished sanding and making it look nice. And then to install a lock, you don't actually need much equipment. Obviously you need a drill and a hole saw, which is that. You can buy those on AliExpress, probably about $4 or $5, or at the hardware store they're probably about 20 or 30. And there's an attachment that attaches to the hole saw to the drill, and then you just need a cheap chisel, and you'll also need a wooden drill bit as well. So you make a hole here, and then there's one hole going that way, and that's basically it really. It's really easy to install. I wouldn't be scared of installing one, it's not actually that bad. So if you actually want to check them out, both Mitre 10 and Bunnings and Petone, they have all of the locks on display, and they actually have some pretend little doors that they have the digital locks all attached to, so you can actually try them out and key in the codes and see them in action to see what they're like. They're mostly Yale and Schlage, and the Schlage ones look really ugly, and the Yale ones look nice, and they're about the same price, give or take. So that's the older model on the website. So that's the one that if you wanted to go with a Z-Wave lock, you'd have to buy that one because Z-Wave's not available for the newer lock. And there's lots of people on the forums using that one with Home Assistant, so you shouldn't have a problem. You'd need to buy a Z-Wave USB key, so they're about $80. And then one of those, the older model lock with a Z-Wave module, you can find it on Trade Me for $400 as a package. So about $480 if you wanted to integrate it. And the idea of integrating with Home Assistant is you can use any kind of automation you want to unlock the lock. So you could say if your phone moves into Wi-Fi or Bluetooth range of the house, then, and it previously wasn't in range, and it's within a certain time period, then you should unlock the door so you don't have to go and key in the code. You can do things like that. Or you could disable your alarm when someone enters the code into the lock. And with the Home Assistant integration, you can tell who has used the lock because you can assign different codes to different people. So that's the one that I bought, which I thought was a little bit nicer when I had a look at it in the shop. The Bluetooth's shit, it doesn't work very well at all.
Are you able to turn off the Bluetooth functionality entirely?
Yes, I think you can. It takes 4 AA batteries. From what I gather, you're probably looking about 6 months to a year on average use, I think.
Do you know what happens when it runs out?
Yeah, good question. So there's two types. There's two types. So you've got the ones that have the keyhole. So if it runs out of batteries, you just need to use the key, and you just have to have the key somewhere available, maybe in the car or something. And then there's the other ones that don't have the keys, and these have two little terminals here, and you can hold a 9-volt battery up against those terminals, and then it will give power to the lock so you can key in your code. So that's the two options there.
When you say Bluetooth is shit, could you expand a little bit on the shitness?
Yeah, so a lot of problems with connecting and pairing with the phone, and then it would work and then it wouldn't, and yeah, and I thought the app wasn't very good. If you look on the app on the Google Play Store, most of the reviews are all 1-star because they're having problems with it. So.
One interesting thing is that Yale apparently brought August. So I've got an August smart lock that I pop to like Airbnb, they love them. So Yale's brought them, so we're just going to see if they bring some of their tech around like their Bluetooth stack and their application stack across to the Yale product line.
The locks are definitely cheaper if you bought them overseas or on Amazon. You just have to make sure that if you're buying, you just have to not buy a Z-Wave lock from America basically if you're importing one. There's a couple of different locks. So there's these types of locks, and then there's the locks. I think the August ones, they fit over an existing deadbolt, and then they'll turn the actual handle of your existing door.
You take the internal handle off, but you keep the rest of it. You keep the bolt, you keep the outer side,
I
that's
see.
on the interior. So it's hard, it's a hybrid.
Yeah, and they also have ones where you don't even have to disassemble and you just put it on top of
that's
that.
the newest one.
Yeah, there's a few different ones. There's one with Nest as well.
So August is really double deadbolt. Take off your internal side of the deadbolt and put the August on.
Right.
So you've still got the key on the outside, nothing different on the outside.
Yep.
But the inside, you walk to your door, you Bluetooth unlock it, and it turns on the inside.
What have I got next?
I've actually got one as well, but my door's a bit sticky in summer, and it's actually you need to pull the door in to be able to turn the deadbolt, so the August just doesn't work.
Yeah, I spent 2 hours one night in freezing cold in the middle of winter reshaping my door to get it fit perfectly.
So that you could lock it overnight.
Yeah, there was a lot of builder's bulk involved for that.
Yeah, my wife loves having to take keys to work. Yeah, it's really good.
Just a 9-volt battery.
Everyone should carry one.
Well, we haven't run out of batteries yet, so we
Went to
haven't
the
come
flower
to that
pots
yet.
when you're on the way to Rob White's place, you're like, what's this weird shit?
Is it only code or does it support NFC or RFID?
I don't think the Yale one does. Yeah, but if you integrate it with Home Assistant, then you could unlock it through Home Assistant and use some kind of proximity detection. The actual way that Bluetooth works on this particular lock, you have to get out your phone, open the app, Bluetooth connection has to then be active, and then you have to go like this with the app. And in that time you would have just keyed in the code, so it's done. Yeah.
You found your key by then.
Yeah.
So is
It
there
would be
a
mad.
keypad as well for like a multi-digit code?
Sorry?
The keypad, what's that for?
So your keypad is how you unlock the door. So you can set yourself a code, you can set your wife a code, you can set temporary codes for maybe that has only one access. So for a tradesman coming to your house or something like that.
So those codes, is that
Sorry, well, I thought it was proximity.
Well, I think key in the code as well.
Is it either or?
So this lock does not natively support proximity unlocking. There's 3 ways. Well, actually, I've got this one. It's this version, but it has the key. So there's 3 ways I can unlock this. At the moment, is 1 is key, 2 is enter in a key code that I've programmed, 3 is use the stupid app with Bluetooth, and 4 is if I added a Zigbee module, or they bring out the Z-Wave module for this newer lock, then I would be able to unlock it using Z-Wave or Zigbee. So I could set up some form of automation in Home Assistant to unlock it. So what I would probably do is, if my phone connects to home Wi-Fi at between 4 PM and 8 PM, which is when I get home from work, then unlock the door. But then lock it again 2 minutes later. You can set it so it locks the door after it's been closed for 5 minutes to keep it locked all the time. And there's lots of different things you can do.
No, it can tell if it's closed.
Pardon?
It can tell if the door's closed or open.
No, this one can't, but my Home Assistant can because I have a door sensor as well.
You can still lock yourself, right?
Yeah.
So so this one, if I was to unlock, I haven't set it up so it automatically locks itself, but if I left the door open for 5 minutes, then the deadbolt would go out. But obviously it wouldn't be locked because the door's open.
it's just not good.
So anything else about the locks?
Did you do much research before deciding on one in terms of the actual security from the electronic and software point of view?
Not a lot of research. I just know that Yale makes pretty good locks, so I just trusted them. I think the way it is at the moment should be reasonably secure. I think the chance of someone coming to your house with a bunch of electronics trying to hack your door down is probably pretty low at this point in time. Maybe in the future when everyone has smart locks and maybe you'll get electronic bandits, but I think the chance is probably pretty low. But I didn't do a lot of research, but yeah.
There's some quite interesting videos from the DEF CON security conference on both electronic and physical lock security. Things like gun safes that a toddler can drop and it will pop open, and like physical security things where like you can poke something in a hole and it'll just open up. And there was one that was specifically around Bluetooth padlocks, and basically one that they could pop with just like a phone or something like that to do stuff. Hence my earlier question about whether to turn off the Bluetooth completely.
Yeah, I'm very, very sure that you can in the settings. Yeah.
So were there other brands that you looked at then, just as part of your research? Or?
Yeah, I looked at Slade as well, but it was ugly. Didn't look nice. So.
Okay. Didn't go any further than the aesthetics.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a look at what's available, like locally. There's not that many choices. There's more choices online.
So, I mean, did Wellington Home Automation have anything else other than Slade?
I don't think they did. They don't have the Samsung when I went there. Yeah.
Which was a problem I faced a couple of years ago. We've got a new house and I really want to put something like that in. Technically, it looked wonderful, but it didn't have to have the wife acceptance factor.
Ah, yes.
No, just wasn't sort of.
Some of them were pretty ugly, eh?
They were, so I mean, I searched to see if there was something else, but really there were only a couple of major players
Mm.
that I could see.
And also like Yale makes locks like other companies like you saw in ESPHome or like software companies try to make physical object, and those are like basically shit because they don't know how to make a lock.
Yeah.
And it's easy to break physical, like some padlocks can be break with a screwdriver. It's excellent, has excellent security from the software side, but like nothing good.
You can say the same about a lock company, they're not a software company
Yeah.
or a hardware company. So
They've been selling the former model for about 3 years and they're still selling it. So I assume it's reasonably okay in terms of mechanics and failure rates and things.
Probably just as secure as your $30 shit lock from Bunnings that everyone else buys, right?
Cool. So a lot of the home automation stuff in my house runs off the Show Me Gateway, and I've actually brought some of the sensors with me to show you. So this, and I think some people have talked about these before a little bit as well. So I'm just going to make it quick. I thought it was good just to bring in some devices so you can see what they're like. So this is the Show Me Gateway Hub. They're probably about $30 New Zealand to import, give or take. It's a speaker and it's a Zigbee hub, and it connects to Home Assistant via Wi-Fi, but it uses Zigbee to communicate with all the devices. You don't have to use the hub now. There's an alternative called Zigbee to MQTT. So you can buy a little Zigbee chip from AliExpress. How much are they? They're about like $5-ish, maybe a little bit more. And then you're looking about another $12 for the cable and the chip to program the chip. And that can replace the gateway if you don't want to use a Chinese company's gateway in your house. You can use the gateway and block it from external access to the internet, which is what I'm doing with my one. And it's very actually easy to set this up. There's some instructions online about how to get the key, and basically it involves installing an older version of the app and then plugging on your phone and then plugging your phone into the computer and running a program that grabs the key out of the software on the phone so you can integrate it with Home Assistant. The actual key, from memory, the key's only needed if you want to control the light on the gateway or make the gateway make certain sounds. I think in terms of just having door sensors and motion sensors in Home Assistant, you don't actually have to bother with doing the key. I'm pretty sure that's correct from memory. So to set it up in Home Assistant, it's pretty easy. In your configuration YAML, you've just got to add 5 lines of text, the IP address, the MAC, and I think the key's optional. And then when you restart Home Assistant, you'll see all the Zigbee devices attached. Well, you've probably done it recently, is that sound about right?
The latest is like 3 months ago. The application you don't have to plug into a computer at all, you can actually extract the key out. There's like a secret developer screen you can get into. You know,
Oh, yeah.
on like a wiki. And like tap a white space like 3 times, and it's like boom, and there's always been a run you don't understand, and you hit the third one.
Yeah,
and
you're
it
right.
exposes it.
Yeah. To get the key for the vacuum cleaner
Yeah.
and some other advices, you have to do that
Yeah.
phone thing. But for actually the key for the gateway is actually very easy.
Or you
Right?
buy like a chip, debugger, and program your own chip.
Yeah.
Why did you go with this instead of Z-Wave license?
Cost. Yeah. So Z-Wave devices are very expensive. So for the door sensors, I bought them when they used to be quite cheap. So they were only about $6 each sensor. And for a battery powered Z-Wave sensor, I'm not sure what the price might be, but you're probably looking at $50 plus each.
Retailing for over 100.
Yeah, maybe 100. Yeah.
Why?
You can't import them either because it's New Zealand, Australia Z-Wave. So you can't get them cheap from the States. So yeah, it's just quite expensive. So that's really why I've gone with Zigbee and Xiaomi because it's cheap.
What's the range does Z-Wave have?
I have a 130 square metre house and I haven't had any range issues. I haven't tested it further.
It's a mesh network, so if you have range issues, you just use a device between them.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
So that's the gateway.
This is my lunch.
These are the wall plugs made by Xiaomi. They make 2 types. They make a Wi-Fi version and a Zigbee version. So you should buy the Zigbee version because it also offers monitoring the power consumption as well of the device attached. And these can be remotely controlled in Home Assistant very easily, or you have a button on the side that turns the plug on and off.
How much are those?
They're probably about, I think they're probably about $12 in New Zealand if you get them on special, maybe up to 15, but it shouldn't be more than 15. They act as a Zigbee mesh repeater, but there's someone's posted a forum post and there's a few things about that. They actually go to sleep and they don't always act as a mesh repeater, maybe. So they might not be a reliable mesh. If you needed to do a reliable mesh, you should go to Zigbee to MQTT, make your own chip, and you can make more reliable repeaters with that. But I think you don't really need repeaters in it unless you have quite a large house or concrete walls and multiple stories, I think.
Does it remember its state between power cuts? So if you've got something on and then you have power cut and your power comes back on, does it remember it's on?
I can't remember. Yeah, not sure.
So you don't. Is it 10?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
I've got some RF233 or
Maybe you need to keep it
stuff
apart.
that doesn't remember between power cuts.
Yeah.
You could plug it into something now, right, and just kill the power and see if it comes back the same way.
Yeah, if there's an extension cord somewhere, we could test it.
Is it that 10 capacity?
Not sure.
Because you don't read Chinese.
I just can't remember. Yeah. But I wouldn't use anything that was remotely close to 10 amps.
They make a separate, I think it's a 15 or 16 amp smart switch for heat pumps. So if you needed something heavy capacity, there was a product for that. But yeah, I wouldn't put all my heaters on it, put it that way. Or a Bitcoin miner or whatever.
Are they even Xiaomi stuff certified for New Zealand?
No.
You actually allowed to?
No.
No.
No, it's the same as all the, the battery chargers that you might get for the phone and everything. It's not certified. Yeah. So these are the motion sensors that I use around the house. So there's Xiaomi Home Automation. Some of them are branded as Aquera, like this one here. It's got Aquera. And then the other ones are called, I think it's just Mi Home, isn't it? Mija, that's right, yeah, Mija. So there's two, these are called human detectors, I think they're called, in Chinglish. So yeah, there's two. There's Aquara, and Aquara has a lux sensor in it as well, so you can measure light levels. Whereas if you buy the major one, it doesn't come with a lux detector. And sometimes they're bundled with the little adjustment thingy, and sometimes they aren't. They're probably about $10 to $15 each. It depends on if there's a sale or not.
Aquara can support Apple Home.
Pardon?
Aquara can support Apple Home. You can use Apple Home
Oh, okay.
to turn on with the hub. It's quite nice. Like internet cheap.
How much battery life you can get from the motion sensor?
I don't know officially, but I think I've read somewhere people talk about like over a year. Yeah, it runs on a button cell. Yeah, I've had my devices for somewhere between 4 to 6 months, and nothing's gone low on batteries. But I haven't experienced changing the batteries yet.
Is it user serviceable or not designed?
Yes, you can change the batteries. Yeah, there's instructions, there's some pictures on how to do it. It's pretty easy. These are the door sensors as well. These you used to be able to get them for $4 US, but now they're more about sort of $8 US. So they're magnetic reed switches. So you just pop them on each edge of the door, and then in Home Assistant you can tell if your door is closed or open, or if it changes state. You can set automations based on those. So I find them quite useful with some of the automations I do. So with the heat pump in the lounge, if the door's been open for more than 5 minutes, the Google Home will tell us to shut the door. Or if there's no one in the lounge for more than half an hour at a certain time, then it will turn off the heat pump if there's no motion in the lounge, things like that. The kitchen lights turn on automatically when we go into the kitchen, then turn off when there's no motion in the kitchen for a couple of minutes and stuff. So there's lots of cool things you could do with them. They also make switches as well. So they have a couple. These are the Zigbee switches. So you can use them maybe to add an additional light switch on the other side of the room where you don't have a light switch, if you've got automated lights, things like that. This one is the cheaper one, so it supports a single click, double click, and hold. So you can make automations in Home Assistant based on that, basically. And then they also sell the 2-clicker switch, which supports left, right, or both. And you can, that's fully supported in Home Assistant as well. Just through that little bit of code there. It's pretty easy.
Is there a version that has a scroll wheel as well?
There's a little cube that you can get, and it supports rotation in different directions and stuff like that. That's another one. I don't see why you'd want that, but that's one of the things as well. You've got some water sensors in your house.
I've got flight sensors, yeah.
I've got a smoke alarm as well.
Oh, your smoke alarm and natural gas alarm.
And what?
And a natural gas alarm.
Oh, yes.
I have not tested the gas alarm. I thought about it, and I was like, I've already got a whole bunch of gas in my house to see if it works. It's probably a bad idea. But everything else is good.
Yeah, I've tested the smoke alarm, it works, at least for me.
Yeah, it's a trigger smoke, right?
Yeah.
And I think that those are the Honeywell, so it's Honeywell sensor technology, and even if you fuck up your gateway, they still go off. So it is a proper quality smoke alarm plus IoT, rather than being IoT dependent.
I've got some ESP8266 chips around the house as well. I've only just recently started playing with those. They're really good. I think there's a few people here that use them. So they're pretty small. So yeah, just about that big. And they cost about $3 US delivered on AliExpress. And here's one that I've wired up that I subsequently accidentally damaged and blew up. And
How do you blow it up? If that's
so it was when I was doing my, I've got an automatic plant watering system, and it has a relay inside and a 12 volt step down transformer, and I accidentally got 12 volt and 5 volt mixed up, and I fed the chip 12 volts, and then the magic smoke came out and it stopped working. So with the ESP8266s, I think the easiest way that I've found, and I don't do much coding and I'm not really experienced with computers that much, is to use, I don't know how to pronounce that, ESPHome YAML, yeah. So that's an add-on for Home Assistant. So if you go into, if you're running, you should have to be running HAS.io to integrate it the easiest way. So you can add on the repository, then install ESPHome YAML, and then you get a screen like this. And what you can do is, so these ESP8266 chips have a micro USB port, so you can use a micro USB cable to plug them into your computer that's running Home Assistant, so your Pi or your NIC, and then you can click on the plus button and you can flash them, and then that's all you really need for Home Assistant. So in terms of, so I've got my garage running on an ESP8266.
Sorry, Mike, are they Wi-Fi?
Yes, they use Wi-Fi, and then communication with Home Assistant would use the MQTT protocol.
What do the chips do?
Oh, okay, so they're Arduinos, and they have a Wi-Fi chip, and they have several outputs as well, GPIO outputs, and they're just very cheap, yeah.
They are not Arduinos, but can program a bit, or like an Arduino type.
Okay.
Arduino compatible.
Yeah. It's a system on chip with Wi-Fi.
So basically, originally they were sold as a Wi-Fi module that you could add to some existing product, and then people discovered that you could reprogram them, and then they released an SDK to let people do that, and then at some point they made it so that it was compatible with the other one.
So you can use them to control relays. You can use them to get information from a temperature sensor or sound sensors. Do they support analog? I think they have one pin that supports analog, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure. So
Yes,
yeah.
Like PWM.
Yeah, do they have an analog input? I think
Yeah,
they
they
do.
have multiple.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm using one to control my garage. So it senses whether the garage door is open and closed, and also I can open and close the garage door remotely. So that's just the tile in Home Assistant. And so in terms of the code to actually do that, you actually can program the chip in YAML using this add-on for Home Assistant. And you don't have to write a lot of code. When you create a new device in the application, it does some of that for you already, and then you just edit the file, and you just need to. Oh, I'm going to have to change my password for my wife.
What's your address again?
So you put in your Wi-Fi password and then your MQTT broker password, and the instructions online are pretty easy. So I've added a binary sensor, which is going to tell me whether the door is open or closed of the garage. And so to use the binary sensor, I use a magnetic read switch. So that's, it's about 50 cents or something. And basically it has two wires coming out of it. And if the two contacts are next to each other, then the circuit is closed, so the wire will be continuous. And if the two contacts are away from each other, then the circuit is open. And so I've got a little magnet attached to the garage door, and then two wires going to the edge of the garage door with the the little magnetic reed switch. So when the garage door is closed, then the circuit is closed, and when it's open, the circuit is open. So, so to set that up, it's a binary sensor, and then I just enter in GPIO is how it's communicated, and then D1 is there's little labels on the side of the ESP8266 chip where you've got your wire going in, so I put it into D1, and then input pull up true. That means that there's sort of two ways a binary sensor works on ESP8266. It can be high or low. So high means 3.3 volts and low is ground. So the way I've done it is I've put input pull up equals true, so that means it'll make that wire have 3.3 volts, it'll make it hot, and then the other end of the magnetic reed switch I've connected to ground, so when the circuit is closed it pulls the voltage down to ground and then it triggers the sensor here. And so that little bit of code makes it so I get a new entity in Home Assistant. Don't actually have to do any other code in Home Assistant. And then I've got a switch for the relay, and that just controls the relay. And it's probably not much point talking about it in too much detail, but if you were to do it, there's instructions online, and it's pretty easy. And then to create that little tile, I've just given it a title garage, and these are the two entities I wanted in that tile, and then voila, I've got a garage door. I actually don't use it. Yeah.
Great idea.
I usually just use the remote.
Oh.
Yeah. But I haven't actually set it up yet, but I guess the idea behind it was that, and I'll get around to setting up an automation, is if the garage door is left open, if the garage door is open after 8 PM or 9 PM for more than X amount of time, then close the door, or tell me that it's open and give me a chance to not close it. Or maybe if the garage door is open and then our location becomes away, then close the garage door. You could do things like that. But I just wanted to learn how to use the chip, so that was just the first thing I did. But I don't actually use it for anything useful. But I am doing my plant watering system, so that'll be pretty cool. I'm still working on that. It partially works, but I want to change it a bit. But basically, how it works is every day it'll give a certain amount of water to the plants. It'll use a relay to give power to a little pump that pumps water in. And then there's a little overflow dish underneath my lime trees that are in the conservatory. And it has a little magnetic float reed switch. And so then I can tell that the plants have too much water when water comes out the bottom of the pot. So I can just soak the pot intermittently, maybe every day, or if the temperature's over a certain, if the day is really hot, because it gets pretty hot in the conservatory, it gets about 50 degrees, so it's good for growing lights. What else? It's not in a nice box inside the garage, it's just kind of hanging in midair at the moment. But you can buy little project boxes to make it look nice, but I've been a bit busy. So these are some other illegal devices I have controlling my house.
Sonoff illegal?
Well, yes. Well, you're not allowed to do your own electrical work. Yeah. And they're not certified in New Zealand. Yeah.
If you have one, you cannot get insurance, right?
Yeah. If you have a fire related to your own electrical work, then yeah, your insurance won't.
Well, those laws are not quite so stringent anymore.
Mm.
They have changed. You can actually do work on your own home these days. You are allowed to. You are supposed to get it checked by them.
Yeah.
You just can't charge for it.
Where it used to be you weren't allowed to at all.
Mm.
Now, in 2002 or something, they changed the law so that you were actually allowed to do some work on your own home, electrical stuff.
Yeah, but these are wired into the mains, but they're not certified.
I'd like to say that now, someone now. Smart to investigate the whole thing.
I'm not a lawyer, so so.
The Sonoffs would be as an alternative to show the light switch, would they?
So basically, these devices, you're putting them behind the wall, behind the light switch, and they're attached to 240 volts, and they have a 240 volt relay, and you can still use your original switch to control the lights. So if you wanted to automate your lights, there's two ways you could do it. One is you could have a light bulb that has a Wi-Fi chip or something similar, and then you can control it via Wi-Fi. But then if you switch on and off your switch, if you switch off your light, then you won't be on the wall, you won't be able to switch it back on, and vice versa. So you could have power always running to your light, and then you could put one of these in front of your light switch so that no one turns off your light switch. You could do something like that. Or the other alternative is to put wiring behind the switch. And so there's lots of different options, and I'll probably change to some more expensive options that are certified in New Zealand.
PDL's now got something
Yeah.
in the market.
But I have a few of these installed at the moment, and I haven't had any problems. There's a lot of them installed around the world, and I think it's very safe, otherwise I wouldn't put it in my home. But I can't recommend them to other people because they're actually not certified in New Zealand. But I thought it's worth talking about them anyway. So there's this one here is the Sonoff, and so they're made in China. They're around about $5 US. And then this one here is called a Shelly, and that's from Europe. You can buy it on Amazon, and they're probably about 30 to 40 New Zealand dollars. That Shelly is the Shelly 2, so can control 2 relays, whereas that Sonoff only controls 1 relay. But it's really hard to fit these devices behind your switch. There's not a lot of room if you've ever taken apart your electrics. So my house is 1965, so the original switch boxes are these metal ones, which I've actually replaced with more modern plastic ones that are actually more roomy. But if you think, I think I've got another photo actually. So the power's off to my whole house when I'm playing with things. So you've got a lot of wiring, you've got the back of the switches to fit in, and you've also got your devices. So it's actually quite difficult to get devices behind switches. So what I've done with my switches is I use, you can buy plastic frames that are slightly larger, and you can take the back of the frame off to give yourself a bit of extra room. I think these are a lot more, I think these are a lot better than the Sonoff, but they're obviously a lot more expensive. The terminals on them are a bit stronger than the Sonoff as well.
Some of ones are actually like just relays and ESP8266 chips.
Yeah.
So you can reprogram it and write your program.
Yeah, the same with the Shelly 2 as well.
Really?
Yeah. I've got some of them and I run Tasmoda on them. So they're at ESP8266 with 2 relays as well. The difference between the Sonoff and the Shelly is that the switching for the Shelly uses 240 volts, whereas the switching for the Sonoff uses some GPIO pins running at 3.3 volts. So once you've wired this up, it's basically a relay, so it's an on-off switch behind your light switch, and then to control the light, your light switch has to send a signal to the actual chip to tell it to turn on and off the relay. So with the Sonoff, it uses a GPIO pins that you've got to solder yourself, and they run 3.3 volts off the chip, but you should, if you were to use them, you should run them to a mains voltage light switch just to be safe in case something happened and it became electrified, then you'd be safe. Whereas the Shellys actually use 120 volt or 240 volt on the switching pins.
I think some of the Sonoff boards too have like a live ground, so you need to be really careful about like when they're turned on at the wall, like not programming them.
Oh yeah, you
so
would never do that.
Just wanted to mention that because apparently it's like a big deal.
Yeah. So you can program them when they're not attached to the wall.
It doesn't look
light them
like
up.
it's
Pardon?
With regard to your comment in terms of isolation, it looks like the whole thing probably is floating.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Yeah, they have the mains voltage goes down the side there, but yeah, I wouldn't touch them when they're wired up. What else have I got in my house?
So have you replaced your switches with a button of some nature, or how does it combat the other?
So I just have it looks like a normal light switch.
Yeah.
On the outside, it's the actual original light switch.
So when you switch it,
so when
is it like when you've got switches at opposite end of the hallway, the automated one is?
So I have this chip in the wall, and I have my light switch in front of it. When I flick my light switch, it sends a signal down the GPIO pin to turn on and off the relay that supplies power in the feed that comes out of the switch up to the light bulb on the ceiling. But I also can turn it on and off using Wi-Fi.
But can you change the state of the light regardless of which way the switch is on?
Yes, you can do that. Yeah.
So it just changes the logic on it to go.
Yeah. So it's you.
The switch would become upside down if you use the remote.
Exactly. Yeah. So with Tasmoda, it supports toggle switches with that sort of function, or you can have momentary switches as well if you had a different type of light switch. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions about that?
If you do, pick up the mic afterwards. Sure, it'd be happy to deep dive it.
And so I've got some Broadlink devices as well, and they're just next to a Google Home Mini for size comparison. So Broadlink make IR blasters. This one is called an RM Mini 3. It's about $15. That's an IR blaster. It actually sends the IR signal in 360 degrees, and you can use it to control basically your TV, or if you had an IR heat pump, and to control that. So I use it to turn on my stereo and my TV. So I'll say, let's watch a movie. It'll turn on the AVR into the right channel to hook up to the HTPC, and then it will turn on the TV and things like that. And then this one's called the Broadlink RM Pro. So that's slightly more expensive, but it adds RF as well. And so I use that to control the extractor fan in our kitchen, so you can turn that on and off with voice commands and things like that, which is not really very useful.
Do you program them with a learning mode, or do you use it?
Yes, so they in Home Assistant you can go to the Services tab and then click Run Broadlink Service, and then it will listen for IR codes, and then you can use your remote and fire the IR signal to the device, and then it will come up as a notification in Home Assistant with the hex code, which looks like a bunch of letters, and then you can copy those codes and paste them into your config, and then you can create switches, and then switches or toggle buttons, or you can add them to scripts, so you can send off IR signals. I found it's pretty reliable. When I was installing my Sonoffs, I was turning on and off the power to the house a lot, and I'd probably say around about 10% of the time after a power cut, the Broadlink was unhappy, and I had to unplug it and plug it in again. But I think they're pretty reliable with Home Assistant, so I think it's quite a good device.
So how do you communicate with that IR blaster? Or either of them actually?
So they connect to Wi-Fi, and then Home Assistant has a component called Broadlink component, and that will talk to the blaster.
So is there any other mechanism for controlling them? Or?
Well, you could use the Broadlink application. The Broadlink application can integrate with Google Home and I think Alexa as well. But the way I integrate it is I have Google Home integrated with Home Assistant directly, and then have Home Assistant talk to the Broadlink, so I can monitor the state of things in Home Assistant. There's an Android app called Sure, S-U-R-E, that has a lot of IR codes for different devices. There's a lot of IR codes that aren't available on your remote controls, and it has discrete on-off codes as well for a lot of devices. So that's a good app to download and use to teach IR signals from rather than the original control. So you download the Sure app onto your Android phone, and if you've got an IR blaster on your phone, and then you can send the IR code through the Broadlink. There's a Broadlink component for controlling heat pumps as well. So I think you can see my heat pump. So there's my heat pump there, and I can click on the heat pump and change, and it has a nice little dialog box where you can choose the temperature that you want the heat pump to go to, and whether you want it on cool or hot, or quick fan or slow fan, and then it will send the relevant IR code to the heat pump. With heat pumps, how the heat pumps work is there's actually, if you were to learn them from scratch, you probably have to learn about 200 IR codes to control a heat pump, because if you turn up the temperature +1, it doesn't send a +1 signal, it sends a signal saying 18 degrees, heat mode, fan setting this, angle of fins this. But there are pre-compiled IR code INI files for the Broadlink component that controls climate control in home systems. So. If you wanting to buy a whole lot of crap from China,
Of course, that's why we're here.
Panda Check is quite a good site. It's like PriceBuy, but it PriceBuys for Banggood, Light in the Box, GearBest. A lot of those Chinese sites that send stuff for cheap. What else? Right, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. It's really good to have one through.